And hello, this is Mr. Finsky, and this video series is going to be on Chapter 8, Working with Macros in Excel. And I'm going to break these up into each of the sections. There are 3 in this one, so I will discuss and then we will move into demonstration so you can get through your individual projects. So a macro is defined as a series of instructions and keystrokes that execute a command. In other words, you can record a series of keystrokes and then attach it to a command or a button that'll execute that for you. For instance, if you had 5 or 6 different setup steps related to printing a document, you could create a macro, which could be a command, say control comma, and it would run those series of commands. Or you can create a button and attach the macro to that button, so you could click the button and it would do those different setups for you. So we're going to go through how to set up a macro, how to edit, how to write one of these in the coding, and which is called Visual Basic Editor, and then how to create a macro enabled workbook. So one of the things the textbook discusses is running a macro, and they talk about the security of this. So one of the things that you need to be familiar with is that these type of macros have a different extension. They are XLSM. And when you open one of these, you do get a security message across your message bar that informs you the macros are disabled, and then you have to go ahead and turn those on. But understand that macros are targets for viruses, malware, or malicious code. So the document inspector identifies but cannot remove them as shown. There's a picture in on 8.1. So just be familiar that these are not great if you're working externally, but within an internal secure environment, they can be very effective. There's also something that will show up, and I'll just show you. It's under your file and under options. And when you go in here, if you want to do the customize your ribbon, one of the things that you have to have is the developer turned on right here. Okay. And you want to make sure you do that. And then there's also, you go ahead and click OK on this. All right. And what this does is it gives us this right up here. And that gives us a new ribbon. And then also under the code right here, you'll want to click the macro security button. Right, and the Trust Center window opens to the macro settings pane. We want to select disable all macros with a notification. Make sure that that is chosen, and then click OK. Okay, so that gives us the message bar. Click OK, disable all macros. That means that macros will not run, and that will protect you. And then if you want to enable them, you'll have that message bar that says to enable macros. Okay, so that's one of the things you'll want to make sure, because you have to use that ribbon throughout this particular exercise. So I've opened up our pause and practice. It's Paradise Lakes 08, and I've already set up the ribbon the way it needs to be. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to go ahead and resave this. I did save this to our desktop, and you want to make sure that you want to have this saved as an Excel macro enabled workbook. That's one of the things when you save it, you want to make sure that that's the case. Mine is saved as that, so we are good to go. We're going to just replace it. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go talk about a macro. So under our developer and under our code group, okay, I want to open our macro dialog box. So right here, let's see if we have any macros that are set up. We do. There was one that was attached to this already called insert date. Okay, and it tells us that the description right here says what it's going to do. That's something when we create a macro, we'll put this in to let the user know what the macro's purpose is. and the place the date in cells D2 and E2 is what it's going to do. Okay, and then from right here you can go ahead and run it, and you can see that that's what it did. It did two different things, and it put today's date, which is Happy St. Pat's Day. Okay, and we can auto-fit column E if we need to. All right. So that's how easy it is. Once you have one set up, we can go through the macros dialog box and choose run. Now most of those macros will have a command that we attach to it, like a control and a keyboard stroke, or it'll have a button. But you could always go to this macros to have a list of all of the different macros attached to this particular workbook. Okay, so we're going to create a macro now. So I'm going to go to A3, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to choose record macro. Okay, so we're going to set it up, and I'm going to give it a name, DEPTNAME. We're going to give it a shortcut, and we're going to go Control Shift and N. You can see I put Control Shift and N, and it is going to be in this workbook. And the description that we're going to put in is display department name in cell D3. Okay, so we got it all set up, and we click OK. It is recording now. Now it is not timed. It is only recording our keystrokes. So we can take as much time as we need to get this set up correctly, because when we run it, it'll be instantaneously. Okay, so I'm going to select cell D3 right there. This is the first step of the macro. We're going to go to Home. I'm going to bold this. I'm also going to italicize. I'm going to type human resource department. Even if you misspell it, no big deal, because it remembers that, and then press enter. And then I'm going to go back to developer, and I'm going to stop recording. Okay, now we're going to test this, so I'm going to clear this out, not just by deleting, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Home, and under the editing group, I'm going to hit the clear button and clear all, so it's completely out of there. I'm going to go to A3 just so you can see how it moves over, and I could go to the macro command again, or I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut this time, which is Control Shift and N, and you can see there it runs. Okay, and that's just one example, but real basic one that would be attached to this particular workbook. Okay, so that's how they work. I'm going to save it, and then we are going to move on to the next video. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording, and then we will discuss the next one here in just a few minutes.